Shabbat Shalom. You would think in rabbinical school they would teach us prayers. You'd think so. They do, of a kind. We are required to know weekday prayers, Shabbat prayers, high holiday prayers, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. We definitely spend a lot of time learning the text of prayers. But none of that helped me, not even a little. I was struck silent when I was doing an internship as a hospital chaplain. I was at the bedside of a patient who was about to go into surgery. And he was scared, he told me, and he felt frustrated at being there, and he was worried for himself and for his family. He needed strength, he said. Rabbi, he asked me, can you pray for me? I racked my brain. I thought of all those prayers I had to learn and I knew so well. What prayers do we have that say all those things that he needed? I couldn't think of the words. I cycled through the Siddur in my mind, the prayers we say every day, the ones we say every week. I was even thinking like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. I was desperate for something, anything, to tell this man. And nothing came to mind. And as he looked up at me from that bed, expectantly, I felt like I failed him. He needed me to be with him in that moment of fear and frustration and need. As he lay in that hospital bed, he needed words of prayer, and I didn't know any. And I thought, how could I not know the words to say right now? We Jews, we're good at prayer book prayers. The roots of our Siddur go back 1,000 years. And 2,000 years ago, our rabbis formulated all sorts of prayers. There's prayers for giving thanks for food, prayers asking God for forgiveness. There's a prayer you say when you see someone who's really attractive. It's true. It's like Fiddler on the Roof says, there's a blessing for everything. There is. We are a very intellectual, wordy people. We tend to spiritually connect through our brains, maybe more than our hearts. Through learning and ritual and books and Torah and Talmud, et cetera, and that's not a bad thing. I personally connect very strongly to Judaism through learning and teaching and arguing our laws and our stories. I love it all. I love our Siddur. I love our prayer book. I love our prayer services. My parents, when I was little, took me and my brother to Shabbat morning services, so the 3-hour one, not this little 1 hour. 3-hour services every Shabbat morning of my life. But I loved it. It's just that sometimes we need something spiritually or emotionally that goes beyond the words on these pages. So what then? Those times we need to express parts of ourselves, whether they're positive or not, whether it's joy or rage, or gratitude or fear or wonder or loneliness, those immense feelings, what then? When the words on the page don't fit the shape of our heart or our soul, are we simply to be silent? Has Judaism nothing to say? It might surprise you to learn that there are very few prayers in the Torah, very few. We've incorporated a lot of Torah into our prayers. There's whole passages we've taken from there and dumped into the Siddur and the Machzor. There's prayers like the Shema, that's in the Torah too. But our most ancient text is fairly, and perhaps strangely, devoid of prayer. But it's not too strange if you think about it. After all, in ancient Jewish society, as in much ancient society, the way you interacted with God, you showed gratitude, you begged for forgiveness, was through animal sacrifice. So you don't need too many prayerful words. But it makes it all the more fascinating when someone does pray in the Torah, the very few times it happens. And one of those very rare times happens this week when we read in the Torah. And it's all because of Miriam. Miriam is one of our 7 prophetesses. We have a lot of prophets in Judaism. Miriam, a prophetess. She's Moses' sister, the one who followed him on the riverbank and, in the basket and singing and dancing as they went to freedom. And she's the reason there was water in the desert. We love Miriam. She's a star. She's great. But she is only human. And this week we read how she gets a little fed up with Moses. He gets all the attention. Everyone loves Moses. Moses. So she slanders his wife, and she expresses outrage that Moses gets all the attention. And what about her and Aaron? God, obviously, hears about this and is not pleased. Calls the two of them into the tent of meeting, yells at them, and then he named Miriam Mitzara'at Kashelik. Behold, Miriam was struck with leprosy or some other terrible skin disease. Either way, a horrible, a painful, a disfiguring affliction. And upon seeing this happen to his sister, Vayitzak Moshe el Adonai lemor, Moses cried out to God, El na, please God, Refa na la, please heal her. What he says is not very long. It's not very complex. Moses fears for his sister's life. He wants more than anything that she be healed. And he doesn't offer a sacrifice or use any of those usual modes of spiritual engagement of his time. These words just bubble up in him and tumble out, and he lets them, and that's the key. El narafanala, please, God, please, please heal her. Those spontaneous words, born not of forethought or taken from tradition. They're the feelings of a person watching the suffering of a loved one and wanting and wishing and hoping and praying to end their suffering. That is prayer, known as kavanah, one of our two kinds of Jewish prayer. Sometimes we need the words in the book. They're great words. They are time-tested. They are well-known. The words in the book allow us all to pray together, and that is a very powerful thing, to join your voice with others, now and very long past. Those prayers are known as keva, meaning they're fixed. We say them every day or every week. They don't change, not too much. The Shema is the Shema is the Shema, whether they said it 2,000 years ago, right now, or 1,000 years in the future. That thing is consistent, and that's good. But sometimes we have an experience that needs expressing, an experience that is so great, so momentous, so joyful, or one that drags us down to our darkest place, our lowest low. And in those times in our lives, none of the words we think we know can come close to capturing what we've seen, what we've been through. That's the time for kavanah. Those are the times Moses teaches in the Torah that we need to simply open up and let the words pour out. El narafanala, please, God, please heal her. With that patient who said, pray for me, Rabbi. And I stood there thinking, but I don't know any words. That was not the time to read words out of a book. That was the time to give voice to that man's trepidation and his frustration and his hopes and his wishes. I got all caught up thinking, well, what's the proper way to pray this? What am I supposed to say? Ignoring the fact that my job was not keva but kavanah, not to say some prefab words, but rather to give vent to this man and his needs and his wishes and his feelings. I think a lot of us, and it's fair, a lot of us think that prayer is only what happens in this room. The words in the pages on the books on your laps right now. And that is prayer. It is, and I love it, and I will always love it. And prayer is so much more even than that. And you already know this is true because you've done it. Prayer is the wishes you whisper into your baby's ear when they're placed on your chest for the very first time. It's that whirling whoosh of feelings when you feel your heart hiccup when you see their face under the chuppah next to you. Prayer is the words that your whole being screams when the doctor gives you the diagnosis, or when you decide to stop treatment, or as the casket is being lowered. That's prayer too. It is just as sacred as anything in a prayer book. We just need to give it an honored a place, make time for it in our lives as well. It took me some practice that summer that I interned as a hospital chaplain to learn to pray spontaneously. It did not come natural to me. And it's not that I threw away all the traditional words, they went out the window. I will always be a traditionalist at heart, and I don't feel bad about that fact. But I had to open myself up to more ways of spiritually connecting, and specifically giving voice to what people needed to express, which meant sometimes I sat down next to the bed of somebody, listened to them talk, And instead of saying words you could find in any book, would say, "Dear God, please be with John as he goes into surgery for his heart. Let him be strong in the face of his fear and anxiety. Let him come to a place of wholeness and healing. Let his wife and children feel your love as they wait together for him, supporting each other. Guide his doctors and nurses to act wisely to bring John to a place of physical recovery and health. Give him the blessings you give all your children." And let's both say amen. And in practicing so much this with others, it became easier to do it for myself as well, to let whatever was coming up in me, joy or contentment or gratitude, or fear, anxiety, and anger too, to listen to those feelings and to honor them and give them space. And not stick so rigidly to what prayer is, what it must be. Some of my most prayerful, spiritually connected, and meaningful moments have not happened while reading the words in the Siddur, but when I've opened up my heart and let what's inside out. A fervently whispered prayer of thanks, a plea for help, sometimes even a silent scream into the void. In Judaism, we are blessed that there is no one right way to pray. The words on the page, the words in our heart, the keva and the kavanah are equally holy. So make sure you leave some room in your life for both. Shabbat shalom.